Good afternoon and welcome to the Africa Virtual Investment Immigration Virtual Expo. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you to Mr. Les Khan, who heads the Citizenship by Investment Unit in St Kitts and Nevis, for being here this afternoon. And thank you all for participating, for registering, and for logging in to watch us. Mr. Khan, again, thank you for being here. I thought perhaps I could ask you a few questions and that you could give me your answers and we could sort of go along. And I'm sure people would find this incredibly informative.
Thank you for inviting me. This is a real pleasure to be focused on in the African region. It's a market that we felt that there is great opportunity, and this certainly is the chance that we need to expose the St Kitts and Nevis's program much more widely.
I think that this will be a brilliant opportunity for this. Let me then delve in with a couple of questions. Mr. Khan, you are responsible for a citizenship investment program that has been in existence since 1984. Do you think longevity is an asset for this program?
First of all, let me say that I have not been in charge of the unit since 1984, but for the last 4 years, I have been in charge. Yes, obviously, St. Kitts and Nevis's longevity since 1984 ensures that the program is one that is well known, best known for its stability and for the offerings that it has. It's because of this longevity that St. Kitts and Nevis has been able to evolve its program and to be now known as the Platinum brand.
Mm-hmm. And other than longevity, what makes the St. Kitts and Nevis program so attractive to prospective investors?
Yeah, there are a number of factors. Again, stability in the program, in the government, would be one of the factors that make us well known. There are other factors, obviously, the number of visa-free countries that we have. We have 156 visa-free countries or visa upon entry. And this makes us a leader in the Caribbean and most of the other CBI programs. The ability for St. Kitts and Nevis to be one of the most efficient units in the world and innovation in what we do has allowed us to, again, reaffirm our position as the Platinum brand. So these are some of the things that differentiates us and allows us to be a leader in terms of citizenship and in the applications that we get from around the world.
So you mentioned efficiency. Can you tell me a little bit more about what allows you to be so efficient within the unit?
If it's one thing that we've been able to do is process our applications in a manner that ensures that we have the minimum timeline from beginning to end. Our engagement model, which involves the service providers, the agents, our passport office, the unit itself, and our due diligence companies, allows us to process much faster. We have an automated system that we were the first program to implement an automated solution. And we continue to innovate in that area, and soon we'll be launching a front-end application that allows the application to come to us even faster than what we're doing right now. So these are some of the things that allows us to just ensure that the application is expedited and can be turned around very quickly for the applicant.
And I know you mentioned due diligence just there. Can you tell me a little bit more about the due diligence that is involved when an applicant applies under your program?
Due diligence is maintained at several levels. So the first stage of due diligence is when the applicant actually goes to an agent. The agent is responsible for at least doing a background check, knowing the client, the KYC side of things, and ensuring that the person is of good repute and is of credible character so that that application can come true. Once the application forms are submitted, they are provided to a local service provider. We passed regulations a few years back that require that a local service provider also do a due diligence and do a KYC on the client. So they too become a part of the process of understanding who that client is and making sure that the client is of the good repute. Once it reaches the unit does a twofold piece of due diligence. One, we send it to an international due diligence company that goes at a deeper stage of research. They will put boots on the ground, actually have agents on the ground who will go out and do things like employment confirmation, looking at all the local regulatory bodies, if there is any information there, any local media, is there any negative media, positive media, verification of marriage certificate, verification of birth certificate, confirmation of the passport and the passport numbers, looking at national IDs to make sure that we have checked all the boxes around that individual's identity and that individual's background. In addition to that, we send it off to a regional body involved in accessing various databases with our international partners. So we call this international law enforcement. And through that mechanism, they will be looking at things like Interpol checks. They'll be looking at various databases for terrorist activity, terrorist financing, links to terrorist activity. Any criminal records, those databases will be accessed. So things like anti-money laundering or criminal activities would be flagged through that mechanism. We will also be looking at checking for individuals who have been denied visas to countries that we have visa-free access. So we're not going to allow a person who has been denied a visa from one of our international partners to get a passport that they can travel within that country that they were already denied. So we deny that person unless they can prove that they have gotten an updated visa for that country. So these are some various means of due diligence, but very solid processes that allow us to ensure that we have the right person coming through our program.
I understand. It is quite an extensive sort of process you have in place. And so I think this begs the question, why is due diligence so important to you? What is your incentive to put so much effort into it?
Well, citizenship is a privilege, and we have to recognize that. It's a privilege within the country. So to ensure that we grant in citizenship to the right individual who does not and will not bring us ill repute, our reputational position can be jeopardized if we allow somebody to go through who has a very bad background. So that would be one of the things. Also, you know, we owe it to our international partners to ensure that we do not let somebody in who represents a security threat to their country, to our country, and so forth. So it's very, very critical that we do this due diligence and we pay particular attention to the reports that we get, to the open source information that's out there, but also for the information coming from our international partners who are part of our decision making.
And let's assume I'm an applicant who's undergone your due diligence. I've passed that due diligence, and I'm not excluded by perhaps virtue of not having received a visa from another country. Are there any other things that I should be aware of that that would stop me from applying?
I think it's very, very important that an applicant, especially within the region we're talking about, can provide a valid birth certificate. Our passport office has some very, very strict rules. And one of those rules is that a passport will not be issued unless the individual can provide a birth certificate. So as a unit processing the application, we would not want to approve an individual, although we could verify the individual's identity and so forth. We would not want to approve an individual and then they cannot get a passport. So one piece of advice I would say to all candidates around the world is we need that birth certificate to be able to get through the due diligence process and to get you to the point of obtaining citizenship. I would think that will be the key. The other factor, as I mentioned, is if an individual has been refused a visa from a country that we have visa-free access, that would be another reason that we might deny. So you'd have to take that into consideration. The third factor is if an individual has been convicted of a crime, I would say don't even apply, because our regulations say if you've been convicted of a crime, it's a reason for denial. All right. And the fourth reason, which is subjective to a certain point, but if an individual has a lot of negative media surrounding their name, and we go through, and that individual can represent a reputational risk to our country, we would deny, because we don't want anyone associated with our citizenship who might put us in ill repute, put us in the media, get us involved in situations that brings down our total program. So from that perspective, we really ensure that we get the right person. We really are diligent about our due diligence, to put it literally, just to make sure that it's the right individual coming through.
And are there any nationalities that you would exclude from the program altogether? And if that's,
I'm sorry, anyone?
Are there any nationalities that you would exclude from the program altogether, and which ones?
Yes, specifically Iran is on our blacklist. We cannot take any names, any applications from Iran, Afghanistan, obviously North Korea, any sanctioned country like Cuba would fall into that category. Myanmar, I think there is some flexibility there now. I believe Myanmar came off the sanction list, so there is flexibility there. These are the countries, so Afghanistan, Iran, North Korea. One of the concerns that I think people should be aware of is the transfer of funds. So once an individual has obtained citizenship, it's important that they can move the funds into our national bank, recognizing that our national bank is an independent entity and will also do due diligence on the source of funds. Not to the extent of what the CBI will do, but they are looking for proof of source of funds to make sure that it's coming from a valid source.
And since we are talking about the Citizenship Investment Program, let's discuss the investment. What are the options under the program?
In St Kitts and Nevis, there are two investment options. One is the real estate investment option, and one is our contribution, our fund. So I'll talk first about the real estate option. The real estate option is divided into two categories. One is if an individual invests in, let's say, a unit, and that is being sold by a developer or condominium at $400,000. So the minimum investment is $400,000. That investment has to be held for 5 years before resale under the citizenship program. So that's one investment option in real estate. The second investment option in real estate is whether the developer is allowing joint tenancy. In other words, two names can go on to a title. And in that particular case, those two names can be sold at $200,000 each, right? But both names are going to be on the title, and it has to be held for 5 years. I'm sorry, 7 years. That's the term. An investor or developer may also offer a share option, and the share option is at 200,000. The developer is allowed to sell a share at 200,000. Again, must be held for 7 years. Now, these options of 200,000, 400,000, there will be additional fees. So there are government fees associated with this, and we expect that the developer, when they sell this, obviously the government has to be paid the government fees on these transactions. Now, the second investment option would be our contribution, and it's called the Sustainable Growth Fund. Now, up until a week ago, the Sustainable Growth Fund was 150,000. We have just announced a limited time offer on the Sustainable Growth Fund, meaning that for a period of 6 months, running from now until the 15th of January, we will allow a family of up to 4 individuals to apply for $150,000. So a single applicant at $150,000, but that single applicant can add a spouse and 2 dependents for a total of $150,000. This represents a discount from our original price of about $45,000, and one that allows us to be in a competitive space with the other programs around the world. So these are the 2 options, and that's the pricing for it. I should mention that adding a dependent beyond the 4 applicants would be an additional $10,000 per dependent. And this offer is good for 6 months, as I said, until the 15th of January. And we expect to revert back to the 150 for a single, 195,000 for 4 at that point in time. With the government fees on the real estate, I think it's 35,000 and then 20,000 for the spouse, and then additional dependents at 10,000. So these are the costs associated with it. With all of our applicants, you must do due diligence. So there is the due diligence fee that is required.
And speaking about this limited time off for a little bit more, I think perhaps the reason why it was put in place right now is that we're in the aftermath of this grave pandemic, hopefully the aftermath of this great pandemic, which has had an impact all across the world. Could you tell us a little bit about how St Kitts and Nevis has dealt with the pandemic, and also how the unit has had to adapt internally because of the pandemic?
Yes, obviously the pandemic has created an economic situation in most countries. And here in St. Kitts and Nevis, one of the biggest impacts is obviously on our tourism. Tourism will take a while to come back into play. Obviously, our tourism was based on flights coming in and also on cruise ships coming in. That had created a lot of jobs for the local representatives here. The government has been able to really do an excellent job of ensuring that COVID does not spread. And up until a week ago, we only had 15 cases on the island. We subsequently allowed the repatriation of some locals who were caught overseas, and one person came in and was put into quarantine. They were identified as having COVID, and subsequently a person who was taking care of them was also identified as having COVID. So we're now up to 17 individuals, with 2 people in quarantine, from what I understand. The ports remain closed except for ships coming in with merchandise and food. The airport is closed except for emergency medical facilities. And I believe this will probably go through for another few weeks before we open up. I think there's concern, and the medical professionals here will be advising us based on what they see happening around the Caribbean and what they see happening in the US, where most of our flights will originate. I believe the CBI program has offered the government a really good opportunity through its success over the last number of years to offer a stimulus package that's the highest in the Caribbean. The Prime Minister announced a stimulus package to the country for 120 million EC dollars. And this is being used to sustain the economy, to diversify the economy, and to ensure that we can move ahead and not be dependent on external resources. So again, you know, the program has done a lot for the country and continues to be most critical during this economic downturn, if you want to call it that. And we expect that with the pricing that we have with this limited time offer, we'll be able to assist the country to maintain a certain standard and to allow the economy to continue to grow and diversify as we move forward.
And within the unit itself, have you found it, I see you're in your office right now, have you found it difficult to go back into work? Do you think processes are working as normal? I think people will be curious to learn, like, will my application be affected if I apply now?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I have a very good team of people here. And unlike most of the other government agencies, which continue to be in a partial lockdown, my unit has been able to come in through this whole period, and we have been ensuring that our applications, our files are processed seamlessly. We did make an adjustment at the beginning where we allowed agents and service providers to submit documents electronically. But we've also mandated that before the file is actually approved, that we want to see all the original documents. So in order to ensure that the file is moving along, that we have enough documentation to go to the DD companies, we allow this electronic mechanism. I will see the electronic mechanism to continue for a period, especially during this limited time offer, because as we get volumes, we want to make sure that the files are moving quickly, and we will take the documents at a later date. So we're allowing that, and the unit continues to function almost to 100% in terms of the hours of work. We do allow on 2 days of the week, Thursdays and Fridays, for our office to be closed a little earlier to accommodate individuals to return home and to do shopping and necessary household activities.
Fair enough. I think a lot of applicants will be reassured by hearing that. And you know, since we are on the topic of COVID-19, do you think applicant priorities might have changed as a result of COVID-19, and how do you think St. Kitts will manage to remain attractive to these applicants?
I do believe COVID-19 has brought about some changes in the mentality of a number of applicants out there, especially in China and the Middle East. I'm beginning to see a lot more interest coming out of Russia too. There is the fact that a lot of people are now thinking that they were left stranded. They weren't able to visit their family. They weren't able to take their families to a safer place, you know, and be in a location where the whole family is together. So COVID-19 has allowed and forced people to think about the second passport, the second option. And we are seeing an increase in interest as a result of that. And again, because St. Kitts is the brand that people recognize, it's coming our way. So we are very happy to see that, and we're able to service those clients, obviously, as expeditiously as we can.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there are benefits to citizenship of St. Kitts and Nevis that existed before the pandemic, much as it does now. What would you say are the sort of top benefits of citizenship?
The top benefits of citizenship and St. Kitts citizenship, again, is the stability of the government, the stability of our passport, the ability to invest in a number of five-star brand hotels in St. Kitts and Nevis, the ability to get an accelerated application, the ability to invest in our fund, which would be the fastest way for citizenship at this point in time. The ability right now in our pricing to get the best possible price for the best quality product, a platinum brand at a most competitive price. So these are the advantages to come into St. Kitts and Nevis at this point in time. We haven't had any failures through the COVID period in terms of our process, in terms of the turnaround time, in terms of our due diligence. So again, all of these are the positive things. We continue, one more thing, we just went through an election, and the unity government, which was the administration prior to the election, is the government now. So continuity is stability. And, you know, this government continues to support the Citizenship by Investment program. We continue to support the fact that we're looking for more diplomatic ties. We're looking to expand our relationships and get more visa-free countries for our economic citizens, and to be able to make this as much of a viable option than anyone else. And we see this in the continuity that we have in the government.
Well, Mr. Khan, I think that was quite a comprehensive overview of the program. If I may, I'll move us to some open questions from the attendees, who I'm sure will have many to ask.
Certainly.
Thank you.